Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick and I'm joined by Justin.
Hello!
How you going, dude?
Doing well.
Excellent. This is our last recording before we have a little break over Christmas. Are you excited for this?
Yep.
Excellent. Are you excited for Christmas and all the Star Wars goodies you'll be getting?
I already know one of the goodies I'm getting.
Excellent.
And I'm happy for it.
Is it a good goodie?
It is a good one.
Excellent. My whole family's into Star Wars, so we just give each other heaps of Star Wars gifts. Actually, I had the idea the other day. I actually have a lot of free time on Christmas Day, so I think I'll actually just show off all the goodies I get on camera and put it on the channel.
Okay.
I think I might do that. That'd be good fun. But for the time being, yes.
I might send you a photo of what I get as well then.
Oh, that'd be excellent. That'd be cool. Yeah, you do that. But for the time being, we have another sort of discussion-y, long-winded, conversational video for you guys.
Slash debate.
But this
not
is
really.
not really a debate in the traditional sense. We're not going to have like rebuttals and that kind of stuff. We're not going to be at each other's throat the whole time. But this is something that you brought up, that you said, hey Nick, we should make a video on this, and I thought, yep, cool. Because this is something that genuinely divides the fans of X-Wings, and that is the question. Should the prequel ships / content be in the game of X-Wing?
And I say yes.
I say no. And we have our own reasoning, but basically what we're going to display for you guys here is just a few dot points each of why I don't think they should be in and you do think they should be in.
A few sides of the coin.
A few sides of the two-sided coin.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
I'm good with words today.
I'm there with you. It is very hot today, I will add. Australian Christmas is just obscenely hot. If you've listened to our other videos recently, you might hear a lot of wind in the background or insects and stuff. That's because basically I have to open up my entire house, otherwise we melt. This is a very big issue here in Australia. Anyway, I just want to point out before we start, as an introduction, yes, this is something that divides the fans of X-Wings quite a lot. Whenever I see this subject ever broached on a Facebook post or a YouTube video, there are always people vehemently for it or against it. Kind of like the reaction to The Last Jedi, now that I think about it. And even though I don't think this should be a thing that should be explored, at least not now, I think there are absolutely arguments for it. And that's really what we want to try and say. I don't think it's absolutely something FFG should never do. Ultimately, as good as I can predict what's going to go on, FFG might do it and really surprise us with the way they integrate it in, and it might just be fantastic for the game.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to talk about. Anyway, we're going to start off with my first point. My first point for the negative. This adds more complexity to the game. Now, if you guys have seen one of my other videos, I talk about complexity at great length. I talk about how to address complexity. And this would be one of those things which just take a massive step back. There's issues with how the ships would be integrated, whether we add more factions, and how we deal with them, how we sort of make them fluff compliant if we want to go down that road. There's no doubt that adding the CIS and the Republic into the game of X-Wing would add more complexity to it. And that is a big issue. We already have an issue with the 3 existing factions. We have FAQs which are tumbling out of control in terms of how much errata they're adding to the game. You add a 4th faction to the game, you are compounding that issue, unfortunately. And ultimately, I feel like the way FFG have already introduced Clone Wars era ships, because we do have some Clone Wars era ships. We have the ARC 170, we have the Sheathipede, we have arguably Slave 1. Am I forgetting anything, Justin?
Slave 1, you've got the Sarge Ventress ship.
Yeah, the Lancer's kind of meant to be like a droid gunship, kind of like a modified version. And the Z95. The Z95 is something which is canon.
And the Gazonti class cruiser.
Oh, and the Gazonti, of course. The Gazonti was originally used by Black Sun and the CIS?
Yeah.
Yes. And the way they've introduced these ships in the game already, whether it be just blatantly, like with the ARC 170, they said, okay, we like this ship, but we don't want to add the Republic in. We'll put it on the Rebel faction, and we'll also give you an explanation as to why it's in the Rebel faction. And I just think that's just a bit cleaner. And that's the whole point I'm trying to make here. Adding complexity is not something the game wants right now. Justin, your first point on the affirmative.
Yep. Mine is, look, these ships are already in here. They're already here. We can integrate them. We can use it like the Scum faction.
Yes.
We can go, look, here are 3 ships that are already part of the Republic. Here's some fixes for them. Bam, here you go. not only that, really cool ships.
I can't deny that.
Really cool
I can't deny that,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, you've got so many different ships as well, and different designs.
Oh, we forgot the Y-Wing, by the way, just
Oh,
as
the
an aside.
Y-Wing,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, there really is a few.
And I guess the point you're trying to make here, just because they're already in the game, integrated in a way which is cleaner, doesn't mean they can't then go, okay, well then they can just be dumped on this new faction then.
Yeah.
I do partially agree with that. I have to concede that point. It's what they did with the Scum faction. They just gave us a pack which fixed 4 existing ships and put it on this new faction, which worked really well. So yes, this is something I completely agree with. I don't think it sways me to the point where I agree with you overall, but there's a plethora of amazing ships that can be added into the game, including the ones already in it. In fact, you wrote down a list. Why don't you you pick up that piece of paper? You rustle in front of the microphone to prove that you have paper in front of you.
Here we are.
And like, just first of all, at total, how many ships do you have here written down?
So I have here, just for the CIS, this is not including the Rebels, or not including the Republic,
Yeah.
36 ships for CIS.
Interesting.
That have been used in either sort of EU Clone Wars stuff or actual Clone Wars things.
Yeah.
In the movies.
It's cinematic universe, yeah, for sure.
There's a lot.
Absolutely.
And
as an aside, because we are either going to release this video just before or after our wish list of ships that we want to see in the game, some of those are from this. General Grievous's personal Belbulub.
Belbulub.
We talked about
the Solus one.
the Solus one, yeah, the name.
Which is the Belbulub.
There was the N1 Starfighter, the Naboo Starfighter. Like, I think that ship should be in the game on the Rebel faction anyway.
Yep. There was the Nova Sword Space Superiority Fighter.
Yeah, that
was Dirge.
Dirge's ship for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to concede the plethora of cool ships we have would be strong for the game.
Yeah.
Would be strong for the game. Let's move on to my next point on the negatory. And this is a subjective point. This is something you specifically don't agree with. But I assert that iconic dogfighting in the world of X-Wing exists primarily in the original trilogy and is mirrored somewhat in the newer trilogy, and in the prequels it's not really there. And what I'm talking about here is that last 20 minutes of A New Hope. That is what we all think about when we think of X-Wing dogfighting. It's not just because the ships are cool and because they do lots of cool maneuvers, it's the characters. It's the interaction between all of Red Squadron and the Y-Wings and Vader, and the nameless TIE fighter pilots that you just see the black expression of. But even that, even having no character, is significant. That interaction between Luke's and Biggs, how they save each other, and how Luke loses Biggs right at the end there, right before he ends up saving the day.
Yeah.
How Wedge has to escape and Vader lets him go. It's that interaction between not only that iconic characters, but also how these ships fly together. I don't think we get that from the prequels. And look, you could argue that it's less relevant in the newer movies, but I think they do a great job of mirroring that. Let's not go into the spoiler territory of The Last Jedi, but let's talk about The Force Awakens, for example. How all those pilots work together, how they support Poe and that kind of thing. There wasn't a lot of really good interaction in that movie. I felt like they could have been done better. It pales in comparison to the fight in The New Hope. But nonetheless, it's adhering to that core idea. Iconic dogfighting exists within these movies, and that's what I wanted to bring it back to. Like, we look at the prequels, I like the opening sequence of Episode 3, but I don't think of that as iconic dogfighting. It was strong character pieces for Anakin and Obi-Wan, I grant you that, but it was just that. It, like, the whole thing with the buzz droids and like the completely characterless droids they were fighting against.
Okay, but then why? What's the difference between that and a expressionless TIE fighter? Because
they were under the boot heel of Darth Vader. It was about Darth Vader, not about the TIE fighter pilots.
Yeah.
Because having no emotion on the TIE fighter pilots as they were just slaughtering rebels was something. But then we had Vader suddenly bring a powerful character to that battle.
Yeah.
And it was how he just ruthlessly slaughtered like Y-Wings and then Biggs. And that's why not having so much expression from the TIE fighter pilots was poignant up to that point. The clones and the droids, I don't feel really bought that. And I will say, I am talking specifically cinematic universe. I know that Iconic Battles was done better in the Clone Wars cartoon. But at the end of the day, what brings people into the franchise? It's the movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like just in terms of what X-Wing is trying to do, I mean, look, Wave 1 of X-Wing, what was it? It was the Battle of Yavin. It was those 4 ships from the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah.
That's what we think of X-Wing as. And for that reason, I feel like entering into the prequel territory, it's taking a bit of a sidestep from what the game is trying to be. And that's my core feeling. But, however, your next dot point sort of offers a bit of a rebuttal to this.
And yeah, I'm going to say this here. You've got the iconic characters.
Yes, and I completely agree with this.
You've got Obi-Wan, you've got Anakin, Dooku, Grievous, Kit Fisto.
Why not?
Why not? You've got all the clones. If you go into the Clone Wars stuff, you've got Asajj Ventress, you've got Dirge, you've got...
Yeah, from the old cartoon.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
There is quite... You've got the Banking Clan people.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much... And this is the problem. With the Clone Wars, it adds hours. Nearly probably, what, day's worth?
It's an accessibility issue for new people.
Yeah.
But I will say I agree with this point that you're making here, that these new characters could offer something to the X-Wing that they previously can't. We can't really have Anakin in the current game state that it's in.
No.
I completely concede that point. And you mentioned the clones. Look, I don't love the way they're portrayed in the movies, and... Like, we were talking about this before, and you're saying the clones are iconic, but my rebuttal to that is yes, but that was because the nature of the clones was retconned with Clone Wars. Having said that, I love Captain Rex. I love the clones directly under Captain Rex.
Yeah.
They were the best part of that cartoon, for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, like, they made it.
Like, if you guys... And I'm not going to give away any spoilers here. Like, in the final series, what happens to Fives with the chips...
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, no,
yeah.
like that, like... People enjoyed those characters from Clone Wars so much that they brought them into Rebels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, Captain Rex is in Rebels, and now they've retconned the old guy in Episode 6 to be Captain Rex.
Yeah, someone from Disney, like, legit said, no, that's Captain Rex.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a case of, we're not making Captain Rex relevant, we're just doing something which doesn't really matter. We're just saying Captain Rex survives. So that's the only thing that's significant there.
Yeah.
He must be old! Because he ages like twice as fast, don't forget.
Yeah.
So in like that, 15 years between A New Hope and Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
He's an old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's cool.
But yeah, like, there is so many people to choose from on both sides.
Yeah, did I mention this is not a debate in the regular sense? I'm just fully agreeing with your points.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to say, yeah.
Like, and I agree with your points to a certain extent. Maybe not so much with the iconic dog fighting, but yeah. It does add complexity, but I think FFG can handle it.
If it's done right. And again, when we're talking about characters and the implication of putting these powerful characters in the game versus the implication of arguably the weaker dogfighting aspects of it, it comes down to integration. How FFG would put it into the game.
What you could do is, like, these characters, while having, like, amazing pilot abilities, they're older ships, so therefore, like, you can say they're weaker, they're less powerful attacks or defense or something like that. They're easier to shoot down or something like that.
Yeah, and that's balanced out by squad points.
Yeah.
That's like the Arc 170 isn't as dodgy as something like an X-Wing. An X-Wing's a better all-round ship than an Arc 170. Yeah, Arc 170 is doing way better at the moment. But yes, ultimately the great thing about the game of X-Wing is we can balance everything using squad points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have TIE silencers in the game. It is the space superiority fighter in the game. That doesn't matter because it costs so much.
Yeah.
That's how it works out. And the same thing definitely applies to these characters. Let's move on to the next point on the negatory. How do we integrate the Republic and the CIS? This is messy.
Yeah, this is my problem as well.
Really messy. And we were chatting about this before we started recording this video, and I think the cleanest way we sort of agree on how to do this is the Republic pretty much needs to be its own faction, and the CIS can be a sub-faction of Scum. I think the CIS being part of Scum makes the most sense, because it does fit very neatly into that. Look, they were well into, like, hiring bounty hunters. they were essentially the scum faction incarnate into an army. They were the others that didn't want to be part of the system of government. Thematically, they fit into scum so well.
Well, yeah, but as soon as you said that, you were like, they were not part of the government. Doesn't that make them rebels?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Rebels are still a separate army, but they're not aligned. They're not aligned to the scum of the universe. They're not aligned to bounty hunters, that kind of stuff. The rebels are specifically trying to rebuild the Republic. The scum is trying to destable the Republic.
Yeah, but the rebels use scum.
I know, and that's where it gets shady. And this is what I'm saying. Like, we kind of agree on this. It's messy. Even on this agreement, we kind of go, eh. The Republic being their own faction, and the reason we come to that conclusion is because it's so hard to decide whether these elements should be on Rebel or Empire. Because of the very nature of them being, at the core, the good guys, but at the core also being the foundation of the Empire.
Yeah.
It's really hard to decide.
You can't go one or the other. It's sort of...
And it's interesting, in the game of X-Wing, we already have ARC 170s on the Rebel faction, because what they did is they took them and they designed a storyline in which they became part of the Rebel faction. FFG completely fabricated that. And I really like that, by the way. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. However, in canon, they were actually used on the Empire. If you read the Kanan Jarrus comic by Marvel, and I strongly recommend it, it's a fantastic comic, he goes to Coruscant right after Order 66 occurs, and these clones who are saying for the Empire attack him with ARC 170s. It's pretty full on. It's pretty full on. And actually, that's another interesting comic, just as an aside, because it also canonizes the Hawk. The Hawk is in the Kanan Jarrus comic, so it's now part of the core universe. Look, however you agree how this should be done, I think we can all agree it's not very clean cut. And at the end of the day, even adding just one more faction potentially is messy. Just from an integration point of view, it's bad from a complexity point of view, as I said before.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we want for the game, do we want a separate faction which would be completely aligned with the Empire or the Rebellion? That's awkward, like having the Rebel and the Republic fight each other. I don't like that. I understand, like, you can have mirror matches between Rebel versus Rebel. I get that. It really is a big compromise on fluff. But it does bring us into the next point you want to make.
Yes, it does open up the game to new formats.
Yes.
And types of formats and different ways that we can go about it. We can have prequel trilogy fights, or we can have the original trilogy fights, and then we can also have...
Yeah, if there's enough content for any of these three trilogies, we could make those their own game formats. And I talked about this when I was talking about complexity in that video. Introducing the new game formats, isolating certain ships and upgrades may be good as a way of addressing complexity, because people can then enter into these formats, and then they don't have such a large pool of upgrades and ships to use.
Yeah.
And this isn't like a rotating format, like I was talking about, like comparing to things like Magic the Gathering. This is just saying, okay, from now on, these factions or sub-factions become their own format. They still can be used in the giant 100-point dogfight format that we're so used to. If this was the case, we should look at a new core set. We should look at a CIS/Republic core set, and then we have a core set for each era.
I like that.
Yeah, and then we should look at packs, which specifically support these different formats. We should look at a First Order pack, we should look at a CIS pack and that kind of stuff. And it gives some new product ideas for FFG.
True.
And although, complexity, that might not be ideal, entering into new formats gives us a bit of a fresh take on the game. I don't deny that. I don't deny that one little bit.
Yeah. Even then, like, you could have some weird storyline in the fact that, these are from the future and these are from the past, but somehow they join. They're fighting each other.
It's like the ARC 170, how they made it part of the original trilogy faction. And look, you guys may not agree. And like, if you have your own thoughts on this, say so in the comments, because I think this particular point I made, and when I talked about in complexity, like some of you said, oh look, adding more formats would not be ideal. And I don't disagree with you. It's something we have to discuss. And if you have points against this, say so in the comments. I actually want to have discussions about this. I'm not just telling you how it is, as I always say.
This is primarily, all in all, a discussion piece.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying prequel stuff should never be in the game of X-Wing.
Yeah.
And you're not saying it absolutely should be in the game of X-Wing right now.
No.
We're saying, hey, look, these are some points for and against. And New game formats is another really potentially messy discussion that's going to come out of this. And that's okay, because we have to have the messy discussions. And that's all good. Let's keep moving on. My last point on the negatory. Dot point number 4. The core X-Wing demographic is not that much into the prequels. I think it's pretty safe to say that the core X-Wing demographic is definitely into the original trilogy.
Yep.
Oh, we argue over the new trilogy, especially with The Last Jedi. But like things like The Force Awakens, Rogue One. Like Rogue One is something that X-Wing fans, by and large, seem to love.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a lot of different Star Wars fans overall, and people can be a bit divided about Rogue Ones, but X-Wing fans seem to love Rogue One because it's such a good support film for the original trilogy. I think it's safe to say that the X-Wing demographic is probably late 20s to sort of early 40s.
Yeah.
It's that sort of older-ish Star Wars fan kind of thing. Still people like us who saw like the special edition stuff when we were kids, but we're not talking like teenagers that grew up with the prequels. I'm noticing a lot of people that love the prequels tend to be sort of low 20s and below, which is below our age group, absolutely. Well and truly, there's a gap between that. And it's not a bad thing. You're not wrong for liking the prequels for that reason.
Just don't like Jar Jar.
Just don't like Jar Jar. No, of course not. But the point I'm trying to make is that doesn't represent the core X-Wing demographic.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong here. Like, perhaps opening the doors to the prequels could open the doors to this new demographic into the game. And that could just make the game go from strength to strength. But I don't think FFG should do things which really endanger alienating their core fan base. Taking it aside, like taking 1 or 2 waves just to build up prequel content might really put some fans off. And that's really dangerous.
Okay, but talking about that, they've just released Wave 12, 13 in a pack together.
Yes, I would argue they're pretty much one wave. We've had waves that size before. 2 big ships and 3 small ships is not unheard of before.
True, but why can't we then just say, it's Wave 4... let's say well into the future.
We could just make a giant wave full of this kind of stuff. Like they did with Scum. Scum had, I believe, 4 ships plus Most Wanted. That was a big wave, and it was only Scum. Wave 6, I believe that was. I know, but I look at that and I go, well, Scum had more mass appeal than the prequel stuff.
But you could do like a Most Wanted CIS or a Most Wanted Republic and still have ships for everything else. But before before releasing that, have some more ships go out into the game.
It could be a soft introduction. We could have, and this is just me spitballing here, we could have like a Republic pack with a bunch of fixes for all the existing ships and maybe a couple more. But we could also have the N1 Starfighter come out in that wave with pilot cards for Republic and for Rebel. That could be interesting. We could have, Shara Bay, the Queen, and Princess Leia on Rebel. And in the old one, we could have Anakin Skywalker and Nameless Guard number 1. Nameless Male Guard, Nameless Female Guard kind of thing. It's like, look, what have all coming out of the hole?
Yeah. I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Anakin Skywalker upgrade card performed 4 barrel rolls in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not the first person to make that joke, but I don't want Let's Try Spinning as an EPT.
No.
Let's not do that.
Let's not.
Let's not do that. But sorry, we're just massively having these asides.
Yeah.
I think the core demographic of X-Wing would not be so into this, and I think the way to do it is probably introduce it slowly, introducing a wave all by itself. It's very dangerous. And that's the point I'm trying to come back to. No matter how they do it, there's going to be people within the core X-Wing community that are going to be heavily challenged by this. And that unto itself is not a bad thing. But I don't want to see something like that hurt the game.
No, that's true.
Yeah, anyway.
And we're all fans of this game. We want to see it survive.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that you've got all these ships.
Not to the point where we're apologists and we don't call out the game when we should. Because we do that on this channel.
Definitely.
And I mean, if it came out and it wasn't done well, I'd be the first to criticise it. Anyway, let's not end on a down note. Let's end on a high note. What is your last point on the affirmative?
I am saying that finally, adding ships that have droid AI offer real new design spaces.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is I am a fan of the CIS. I make no apologies or anything.
No, don't do.
This is... As soon as I started playing this game, I went to Nick, they need to have the droids. I want droids. I want to have
That's where this whole conversation came from, yeah.
And that's the thing. Offering new design spaces in having droid AIs to say maybe...
It's not humans with real character. It's droid AI.
Yeah.
And how do you do pilots on a ship that is the droid? A lot of people would say that's a reason not to put it in X-Wing. I would say no, that is something new and fresh we can do with the game. How it's integrated is the interesting part about this.
Yeah. You've also possibly got it maybe doing swarms. Like
Yes.
having multiple ships on a base or something like that.
Like the Vulture droids are tiny.
Yeah. Oh, they're just a little bit smaller than an A-Wing.
Just a bit smaller than that. Okay, so you could argue that it could be done.
Yeah.
But still, that'd be dwarfed by the base, which is kind of weird. Yeah. But you could do like a swarm of 3 of them on a small base. Kind of like Armada ships, but in X-Wing scale.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think challenging the natural design space of the game of X-Wing is good. I think FFG, 90% of the time when they move into new design space, they do it well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go, oh no, but FFG keeps screwing everything up. And yes, I know they screwed up the Jumpmaster. They screwed up the TIE Phantom when it first came out. I get that. But that's 2 ships out of what, like 100 or whatever they have at the moment in the game?
Exactly. There's so many ships, and to only have a small amount of ships that were wrong at the start, but they fixed.
Absolutely. And more to the point, that's not an excuse to not do new design space.
Yeah.
It's something that they should always be pushing the envelope, even if they screw up. Especially when they screw up. I want to make that point completely clear. If FFG trip over their own shoelaces trying new design, that means they should try other things. Doesn't mean that they should go back to safe space.
No.
I strongly assert that. You agree with that? Look, you at home might not agree with that. You think they should stick to safe things. I don't agree. Although I overall assert that I don't want the prequel stuff in the game, especially not right now. I think overall new design space is a good thing for the game. And I just wanted to end this conversation on that high note.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right about that. New design space is not a bad thing for the game. And overall, yeah, look, I feel like having the prequel stuff is not ideal for the game, but I don't disagree with your points. Not by a long shot.
And I agree with you to a certain extent as well. I don't think we need these ships right now. Maybe, a couple of waves down the track.
But the R&D should start now, is what you're saying. Yeah, okay. I get that. And at the very least, if this is going to happen, this is something that's going to happen with a lot of planning.
Oh, yes.
In between the hype of the new movies and the new content, halfway through a year, although Han Solo is slated to come. However, this offers FFG a good chance to give us new content in the middle of the year and during Christmas, during the primary gift-giving period where sales go up across the board in every sector. This is a chance for them to give us something new and exciting. We have these gaps in the schedule to have a look at that kind of stuff. And this is a great thing to do in those gaps, to capitalise on these periods during the year where there's not a lot of hype around new movies. And that's just really good. And that's what I want to end up at. I don't think this is necessarily going to be a bad thing for the game. I think, in my opinion, it probably would be. And that's what I want to say. But FFG could surprise us. They have before, and they might again. Anyway, guys, in the comments, let us know, what do you think they should do with this kind of stuff? And be civil. I know this is a point of a lot of emotion for a lot of people. Some people vehemently love this kind of stuff. People vehemently don't want to see prequel stuff in the game of X-Wing. So in the comments, let us know what you think and give us justification as to why. But in the meantime, like and subscribe.
Like our Facebook.
And we will catch you later.
Bye.